Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan, and I'm not too sure if this one can be condensed into 10 minutes, but I'll give it a right good go. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is lots of topics. It's my fears, my concerns, and probably a cry for help of what's going on locally to me in Scotland, nationally to me in the United Kingdom, and even some things worldwide that just don't make sense. It's broke and it needs fixed. And what the thing that, and it's not solely this, but the thing that really tipped me last night was the Tommy Robinson thing. And I'll speak about a lot of things, but the Tommy thing was the click. And the reason that it's had me thinking since it happened yesterday afternoon is the why. Because, I don't know all the information. Maybe nobody does. But the timing of it is incredible when you consider what's meant to be happening today down in London. And I'm going to a wedding later on today, or I would have been there beside you. And I hope everybody going down has a safe and worthwhile afternoon. But I have got concerns about that. And the reason the timing is just bonkers. When we consider what happened, the last demonstration that Tommy had, he was leaving, and I think he was heading for or at the Eurotunnel when he was arrested. Trying to leave the country. To go to Portugal, I believe, with his family. Or to be reconnected with his family. And he was taken in, held, and released again. In full knowledge. In the likelihood, he might have been asked, I don't know, but when you stop the guy at the border and then you release him, you kind of think, well, he was going to go back to the border and go to wherever he was going previously. And I'm meant to believe that he was rearrested, or arrested is the wrong word because he'd already been arrested, taken back into custody yesterday to make sure he goes to court on Monday. Now, logic would suggest that the guys came back. If he was on the run and had decided he wasn't coming back to the United Kingdom, that's a different concern. And I'm meant to believe that these are terror charges or investigation. Surely we don't live in a country that genuinely has someone being investigated for terror crimes and let them go. Knowing fine well that you arrested them at a border point. The likelihood is they're going to go to a border point. So that doesn't add up to me. And when things don't add up to me, I can't process the information, and it sits in this wee bit in my brain where I go, that's a bit smelly, that doesn't make sense. And that's how my brain works. And this is one of these things where I think, that just doesn't make sense. So what we're expected to believe is there's this guy that's alleged that, the police are looking into him for terror acts, not actually he's a terrorist, but anti-terror things. And we just let him go. And then remarkably, 24 hours before potentially one of the biggest protests in the streets of London, the guy who's organising it, or the main organiser, gets rearrested on the pretence that we want to just make sure he goes to court on Monday. Well, I think the eyes of the world were going to be on him this afternoon. So if he was trying to do a bunk, it'd be easy to follow. And you got him at the Eurotunnel the last time. So it just doesn't make sense. It appears to me, the only logic I can apply to this whole situation is he just didn't want him at that protest. Now that's a dangerous thing. Because you've got hundreds of thousands of people going to support a guy that they feel needs support and deserves support, and suddenly he's not there, then you've got hundreds of thousands of people that might be a wee bit upset about that. And then when you tie in some things that I've already exposed, and that is the fact that trade unions are funding the counter-protests to this. That's no by accident. So they're going to have loads of people who are there prearranged to protest about something that they actually don't know what they're protesting against. It's just this fear of this guy, right? And the whole thing's got the potential to get really, really smelly. Because if I'm going, that doesn't make sense about Tommy Robinson, there's hundreds of thousands of people going down there to support him, and he's not going to be there, then they've got the same concerns as me, then you can understand why I have some concerns about what's actually going on. And are these things getting planned to create a reaction, to further demonise anybody who is considered to be right of centre? And we get told they're far right when most of them are centre or even just slightly right of centre. It just doesn't make sense. And it just got me thinking. I hardly slept last night. I should be away ironing my shirt and getting ready for this wedding I'm going to, and that's just, the fact that I'm even making this video under the circumstances I faced personally today myself is just a bit bizarre. And all these other things were coming into my head, and I'm thinking, what is the state of the place? How many things are just no right? How did we get here? Recently we've seen a judicial system. It doesn't make sense when there's abusers get non-custodial sentences, and people like the guy Peter Lynch, the 61-year-old that was unfortunately no longer with us. And that itself is just horrific. For doing what? Holding a placard and shouting at a protest. 31 months in jail. We see the same with the Tory councillor's wife, and that story, there's more to come with that story. There's some smelly things went on to that pre-trial that will come out, I'm sure, and are just proper weird, right? And then we've got a Labour councillor who's doing this and telling folk that certain people in certain spectrums of the political, certain parts of the political spectrum have to get their throats cut. Now, I've known, because of what I've been doing in my own life in the last 24, 48 hours, there are suggestions that this guy's being released from prison when we were led to believe he was getting held until his trial in January. Which means that guy will, if it's true, and I'm not 100%, I think it's true, but I've not been able to spend any time looking into that one, which is in here to do anyway. So that guy, if you look at what he's done, the Tory councillor's wife and Peter Lynch, arguably the worst out of the three, and that is open for debate, but I think a fair few folk would agree with me, is what the Labour councillor done. Now, out of those three people, if he has been released pending his trial, he's the only one that's going to spend Christmas with his family. Because the Tory councillor's wife's in jail, and unfortunately Peter Lynch is no longer with us, and his family's going to have a horrific Christmas. And that just doesn't make sense to me. It's the hierarchy of sentencing doesn't make sense. You would think the more serious the crime, the more serious the sentencing. When people sent a tweet, people standing at I just can't get over my head that a man went to a protest with a placard and started shouting stuff. Isn't he with us anymore? And a guy who was making real serious, or alleged to be making, I didn't use that word, but I don't think I should have to, but I do, who's alleged to have made some serious threats to an audience, stirring up hatred, etc. It looks as if he's actually been let out of jail. And what I think what frightens me most is it's becoming the norm. And there seems to be this almost brainwashed part of society on the left, and the extreme left at that. They all want to say the same things. Now, you can categorise them, whereas they don't shout about one of these things. It's generally all in, all of them, and it's like gender, it's like drive to net zero, it's like accepting immigration, that mass immigration, it's accepting, picking the sides of Hamas, and a war that it's nothing to do with it. And it seems to be if you're into one of these things, then you're into them all, and none of them make sense. It's just so many people. It seems to be a drive to accept that men can become women. You're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And there might be a very, 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 very small percentage of people who have a thing which may or may not be a genuine thing. There's debates about that called gender dysphoria. But that's a minuscule amount of people. Yet there's this massive drive to have it acceptable, and they would then factor in people who have just got mad fetishes and dangerous minds that then become into the same category and using single spaces and all these bizarre things, and the education of how this is a true option for people in schools. It's bizarre. We've got the drive for net zero that makes no sense at all. Yes, and reducing pollution and having nicer, fresher air in our cities, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. But the drive to actually deindustrialise a whole nation, well, halfway around the world in China, they're building coal furnaces every other hour and, no caring. Just genuinely don't care. India and China are doing so much more pollution that if everybody else gets to zero, there would still be more pollution in the world level than there is today. You think, why are people neurotic about this? Why are people trying to destroy Van Goghs and Stonehenge and stuff over this? Why have we got governments that are trying to put solar panels in fields where we produce food? It does not make sense. We've got people out in the streets every weekend in the UK since the 7th October last year, and they cry against genocide in Gaza. But the reality is, in a war that's lasted a year, I think there's less than 1% of the population have died. That doesn't sound like genocide to me. If that was the aim, Israelis are not doing a very good job at it. Which, if they really wanted to commit genocide, they've got some really serious bombs where they could. But these people who are crying about this unfairness in the world are also advocating the total destruction of a nation of Israel. And you think, well, surely if you are anti-genocide, then you don't want anybody to be destroyed. But it seems acceptable when you do it in one direction. And that makes no sense. We live in a society where I can understand, it amazes me that I can go and buy my groceries and present my mobile phone and that somehow pays for my shop, and these things are bizarre and, very futuristic, as if we've got up in the future. And, there's a lot of ease there. But this sort of drive to have a total removal of cash doesn't make sense to me. It genuinely doesn't. And there's the acceptance of mass migration. That's another one that just, if you like this one thing, you've got to like them all. But the biggest concern I have with the mass migration thing, and the one that doesn't make sense to me, is why the trade unions, almost en masse, almost all of them, want to support the notion of mass migration here. When the union's sole purpose should be the protection of the UK workers and, protecting their wages, protecting their, keeping their jobs. And if you bring in 1.2 million people like we did last year, that is not going to affect the UK workers' jobs in a positive way. It's impossible to. I mean, you think we do, we live in a sort of free market. And if you've got more people you can employ, then why would people double their wages? If we've got less people to employ and, almost full employment, people go, well, I kind of need workers, so I'll need to offer more than the next guy. And wages go up. And conditions go up, because when we've got almost free rein to just employ somebody else tomorrow, employers could be saying, well, I don't really like you, beat it, I'll just replace you. But when we've got less workers, then the worker becomes more important. So the fact that trade unions are driving against anybody who has concerns about immigration levels, it is actually very confusing. It does not make sense. They should actually be doing the opposite. They should be saying, no, like me, I'm not saying we should have no immigration. What I'm saying is, we can't cope with 1.2 million. And the trade union should, when you sit down and think about it, should be saying the same. But they're not. And they all seem to be led by communist, Marxist anti-British folk, which is pretty bizarre as well. Other things like this is the power of the state. We live in a country where the Scottish government tried to have the state as a guardian of every child. Thankfully, they lost out, but that was certainly an attempt by the same government that brought in hate crime, which can see you go to jail for thoughts and saying things at your dinner table in your own house. We've seen the lockdown in 2020, and we see drives to try and make that almost, I'm not saying the norm, but give the governments greater powers of calling for lockdowns. And then that was followed on with the compulsory JAGs. And I say that, and I don't mean it incorrectly, they were compulsory, and people say, oh, well, they weren't really, it was your own right. Well, that's, yeah, but there was restrictions on so much if you didn't get them, that it did make it compulsory to a lot of people. I was also lied to and told that these things were safe and effective, and I've now since seen the documents, the contracts for these things, and the people making them never claimed. I actually told them the complete opposite when the contracts were signed. Your government's told us that these things are safe and effective, one of the biggest lies told to man. I'm speaking to Dave Sharp, who's a child abuse campaigner, just this morning, and thinking about, you know, the things there, the level of cover-up of abuse, historically and still today, is absolutely frightening. I'm working in another case that I'm not going to say too much about, but it involves a family who were cheated out of something quite valuable. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was how that was covered up all the way through the judicial system. And once I'm in a position to actually start putting the videos out on that, my discussions have already reached people who were ex-cabinet ministers. I've had meetings with them about this case. And these people see the wrongdoings that I do. And I'm not alone, I'll not be the only guy out there chasing things like this to put them in the public domain. And when you see the level of this one, find life at you. I actually find it terrible that we live in a society where we need to have predator catchers, citizens out there catching people that want to abuse children. And what frightens me more now is how we seem to be demonising them. There's people being arrested for doing so. That frightens me. We seem to have a dumbing down of the police. And that must be frustrating for the police, by the way. I'm not going to sit here and say I hate the police. I don't. The police have a very important role to play. And it must be frustrating for them where they think, well, there's real bad things going on in the world, but we're getting sent out to do X, Y, and Z. And the police must see that the drive for a two-tier system as well. And we see the police officer last week, finally, after 3 years, found not guilty of murder. We had a man, and a criminal, and a wanted man at that, because he released a firearm in a public place, a nightclub nonetheless, days before it, driving a 2.5 ton Jeep repeatedly at police, and eventually one of them released his firearm and killed the guy. And we're getting people in society telling us that that's wrong. It is not wrong. It's wrong that we should accept our police officers. We also need to look at Manchester Airport. It's wrong that we have to accept our police officers being attacked and somehow justified if it's certain people in society that are physically attacking police officers. We get told that that only happened because of the man's skin colour. When I suggest the reaction to it, and the people try to say how terrible it was, is only down to the man's skin colour. Because if that was a white man, I don't think we'd have the MPs, etc., all out up in arms about it. And it reminds me of Audrey Dempsey, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, even at a local level, trying to voice a concern for the racial abuse of white children and school teachers in schools in Glasgow, and how that gets treated. Lies told about her. Real proper shit pieces put in newspapers to try and discredit her. For what? if you spin that round and she was to raise questions about white people racially abusing other non-white people, she'd be hailed a hero. There was attempts made for her to change the word from white to black. And like, what? That's what we're living in. And I fear there's a dumbing down the education where, you know, we spend more time now talking to kids about the options of gender than we do about Passchendaele and their brave soldiers. We teach kids that they should be really, really upset and ashamed of their nation and the British Empire as it was years ago because we used to have slaves, but completely ignore the part of that empire in abolishing slavery and actually paying with the lives of our navy by protecting and trying to stop it worldwide. And that's odd when you're educating kids to be ashamed and not proud. Nobody should be proud of slavery, but you should be able to take a bit of pride out of the fact that as a nation, and a small seagoing nation at that, we became almost the world police in the destruction of slavery out of Africa. But that's not what we're taught. Now, as I've hope, well, yeah, I always try to be positive, and I have great faith in the people of Scotland and the United Kingdom. Good people, in essence, and at heart, we are good people. And there's a lot of people out there trying to make a difference. I mean, I started this video with talking about Tommy Robinson. He's quite a good example of someone trying to make a difference. I watched last night, for the first time in a while, the Persian-born proud British guy, Toosey, on his channel, who he's had to move house because he risked his own life. That's bonkers. Spoke to a young guy, I was a guest of a young boy called Baraka, again a foreign-born child, came here as an immigrant and gets it, totally gets it. Young boy in his early 20s, fantastic, go and look up this kid on YouTube. Tom Robinson doing a video about him just yesterday, the day before, I seen popping up on Twitter, saying how great this kid is. I've been praising him for a while. You've got the Preston Journalist, another guy on the right side of almost every story. You see people becoming internet sensations on social media like Harman Singh Kapoor. Hindi, real scared, real proud to be in Britain and trying to spread the word of what's going wrong in our country. And there's more of them. And then in Scotland, we've got things like The Majority Show. Great thing, they've been very, very good with me. Give me lots of coverage and always make me welcome on their show, just to protect the union. We've got young guys again, like our own East End of Glasgow, John White, a fantastic young man, driven, intelligent, understands right for wrong, is not Jewish but went and stood and was abused for it, for paying respects on the 7th of October for the people who'd lost their life that day. A young guy that understands standards and right from wrong. We see folk like Silver Fox and Ziggy doing similar to what I'm doing. We see other young guys like Niall Fraser, who, again, a good old head and young shoulders that is trying to make changes in his country. You get guys like the Glasgow Cabbie, who has organised numerous very successful things and has been terribly abused for it. And you've got guys like John Watt, who confronted our own Prime Minister at the time on national TV about the Jags and the scandal thereafter. And there's lots of people doing lots of things, and they have all to be saluted, and they've missed anybody out. It's not been deliberate, it's just that the list is endless. But every day things are getting worse, and every day there's new things become apparent that are wrong in our society. So those who are trying to help, they need to get bigger, they need to get louder. Because we need the man in the street, not just to be worried about these political things every 4 or 5 years when there's elections, to be trying to put fear into people, but they should be concerned about these things every single minute, every single day, because it's not just one thing, as I've already spoken this God, 20 minutes. It's just endless. Endless. It's time for change. And I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? Can I up my game? Can I get louder? Can I get more visible? Can I do more? I'm prepared to do it. If anybody else out there wants to, talk about how we can make things better, then just contact me. I'm not hard to find. Twitter's probably the easiest place to get me. And let's make this better. Because I love my country. My country's United Kingdom. I'm Scottish, British, but my passport's British. I was born in an area of Britain called Scotland, which I'm also proud of. And people say I can't be because I'm a unionist. I'm so concerned and try to protect my country of Scotland so much that I want to protect it from separation. But people say because of that, then I cannot be a proud Scot. I've had that knocked out of me. I used to be the tartan-clad guy in the front row at Wembley, paying £100 to get in England then to support my club, my nation. I don't do that anymore. That's been knocked out of me. But I want a better Scotland, and I want a better Britain. And abuse me for it all you like, I don't care. It means nothing. People try to attack me. People even that want the same as me are starting to attack me because, I don't know. I actually don't know why. But you think, look, at heart you want the same as me and you're starting these campaigns to try and attack me and stuff, and you think, oh my God. But listen, this isn't my first rodeo. I was campaigning 10 years ago, but I totally separate thing, and it took 3 years of my life. And this is bigger. And I'll do more. And I'll put more at risk. And I'll put more effort and put more time in even than I did with the stuff 10 years ago. And I took abuse for that. I was arrested, sued, threatened 10 years ago. And I expect the same again. But it won't stop me. If you enjoyed this video and the content in it, please give us a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe and the notifications bell. Let me know your thoughts in the messages below in the comments. But most importantly of all, unless you're any of these communists, I'm trying to wreck this country. And I say that, I've used that word for the first time talking about Keir Starmer. People try to ridicule me for it. But I'm right. And the communists and their trade unions and these people who are actually trying to hurt this country but claiming to try and defend it. You're not, you're wrong. So not you. But
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.